Hello, my jerks. David Daniel Ducker here. Today I'm doing a review of one of my favorite role-playing games, Barbarians of Lemuria. I don't usually talk in a huge amount of depth about mechanics, but there's not a whole lot to Barbarians of Lemuria other than the mechanics. Yes, the setting has a lot of interesting features sketched, but it is just a sketch. It's a post-apocalyptic future, swords and sorcery in an alien world, which is great stuff. Very reminiscent of Lemuria or John Carter or Planet of Adventure. But again, it's a sketch. The setting, to me, is not the draw. The draw is the mechanic that they use. So I'm going to talk mainly about that. What is the mechanic? Well, first of all, 9 is the magic number. You roll 2d6s and you're looking for 9. If you hit 9 on that 2d6, you have succeeded. If you roll lower, you have failed. That's the core mechanic. And your base skills are very interesting, very unique in role-playing, in my experience of role-playing. But I'll start with the attributes. You have 4 attributes. You have strength, agility, intelligence, and charisma. And those, to me, are like the 4 best attributes to have. You know, you could even combine strength and agility into one and make it, body, mind, and spirit. But splitting the physical up, especially for a high-action game, I like that. You know, it's a good number, 4. It's a good number to work with. It's not too many that it gets confusing and clustered. But it's not, in my opinion, it's not too few that all the characters start to blend together. So those 4 key attributes. You have 4 combat abilities. You have unarmed. You have melee, which is weapon fighting. You have ranged. And you have defense. So with those 4 fighting characteristics, you can define your fighting style. What are you good at? Are you an archer? Are you a fencer? Are you a wrestler or a boxer? And how defensive are you? You could pump up your defense so that you can't get hit, but you might not be very good at offending against others in that case. So those are your 4 skills. Those are really the only skills in the game. I'll get onto that in just a sec. But between your 4 attributes, you have 4 points to distribute. It starts at 0, it goes up to 5, and you can go down to -1 if you want to. Same thing with your fighting skills. You have 4 points to distribute among the 4 skills. It starts at 0, it can go up to 5 or down to -1. And if you go to -1 in either case, you get a point back to spend. So you can customize that pretty much however you like. You also have your hit points. You get 10 because you're a human-sized individual. And then you add your strength to that. So if your strength is 2, you get +2 hit points. That makes 12 total if you're of human size. If you have a setting where maybe you're playing giants or hobbits, your hit points won't start at 10. They might start at 5 or at 20. Because it does have that linear kind of scaling to it, which I really like. And you see that in all the monsters as well. They're twice the size of a human. They have twice as many hit points. They're twice as strong, etc., etc. If they're half the size, then everything is going to be halved. So the real meat of the system are the careers. Rather than having an extensive skill list, like I said, there's only 4 skills and they're combat skills. Rather than having a skill list, you pick your character's careers. You get to pick 4 careers at the start. And they range from 0 up till 5 ranks. And these careers can be anything. They can be of the player's making, but they have an extensive list in the core book that they recommend that you pick from. And these are things like bureaucrat, noble, priest, magician, alchemist, thief, assassin, guard, miner, fisherman, farmer, craftsman, entertainer, uh, scribe. I have an extensive list, and basically each career that your character has had in his life, in his backstory, you want to put ranks into. So you can take the backstory and directly translate it into these statistics that way. So if your character was raised as a farmer, but then decided he wanted to leave the farm and he became a mercenary for a while, then maybe he fell in with an alchemist, then you can take those three careers and say maybe he was really good at being an alchemist, or he dedicated more of his life and time to doing that. So put one rank in farmer, one rank in mercenary, 2 ranks in alchemist. That's my 4 points spent. And the way your rolls work, I already told you about the core mechanic. Roll 2d6, but you add your attribute, strength, agility, intelligence, or charisma. So you add your attribute to your roll. You also add any pertinent career, whichever career you have the highest rank in. So you're trying to sneak, probably your thief career. However many ranks you have in that, add that to your roll. If you're trying to follow a trail, maybe you have a career as a hunter, and you can add that into the roll. If you're trying to ride a horse, maybe you have a career as a knight or a messenger. Anything that you think would be pertinent to the task at hand, any career that may have trained you and taught you and given you experience, you get to add that to your role. So you go basically by statting out your backstory and using that in the present. What have I done before that will help me here? Rather than a skill-based system where you break it down in a more specific fashion. I love the career system in Barbarians of Lemuria because it is so narrative in that sense, that the narrative becomes a mechanic very smoothly. You can use it without metagaming, without having to go through a whole huge list of skills. You can simply say, what's my background of my character? What's his backstory? It's so easy to transition that into a character sheet and mechanics. And that's, there's a few other things you can go into on that system. You roll usually a d6 damage. You add your strength. Armor acts as damage reduction, typically. So that damage roll gets something deducted from it if they're wearing armor. And then the remainder comes out of their hit points. Very standard stuff, seen in a lot of RPGs out there. There's no chase mechanic in the core book, as many RPGs unfortunately don't have. But there's that basic combat system, and there are a few other subsystems I want to mention. There's 3 types of magic. There's alchemy, which lets you build any kind of device to use that's magical, like a magic sword, maybe a flaming sword. If you want some bronze wings to strap on, and then you can fly. Maybe some boots of cheetah speed, so you can run very fast. Maybe the helm of invisibility, Perseus style. Anything like that, an item, then you want to invest in alchemy. And we also have sorcery, which is your more standard magic. And the last one is theurgy, is praying, is miracles. But they each have their own unique flavor. Alchemy is very easy to put that off and say it's all about items. And that could be potions, wands, scrolls, any item at all. So that already feels very different because you have to prep these well in advance, but you can get a lot more out of them on the back end. Sorcery is very, very versatile. There are, I believe, 3 ranks of spells, and they just give you an outline So you can determine, you can think whatever you can think of as a spell, you can do it, and you just fit it into one of these three categories. Spells of the first order are anything that a normal man could accomplish with the time and tools. So a normal person could climb a wall if he had rope, if he had pittance. So to fly up to the top of a wall, we could easily say that's a spell of the first order. Or if there's a door that you think a normal person could probably batter down, maybe with an axe, well then, to use magic to accomplish that, that's a spell of the first order, because a person could do that with the right tools and time. Spells of the second order are things that a group of people could accomplish with the right tools and time and expertise. So a little more powerful. Now we have maybe a door that one person couldn't break down by himself. Now maybe we have, I'm trying to think of like a mobile example for a spell of the second order, some kind of movement that multiple people would be. Maybe, okay, haste, like running as fast as a horse. Now that one person couldn't move that fast, but a person with a horse could. So I personally would probably say that sounds like a spell of the second order. It's not two humans working together, but it's two living creatures working together. So I'd allow that spell of the second order. And a lot of it is subjective. Maybe for your game, that would be a spell of the first order. And then the final order is the third order. And these are things that are absolutely impossible to accomplish without magic. And they're typically very powerful effects, like creating an earthquake or a tidal wave, or turning everyone in town into a satyr. These are your, wish or miracle level spells and abilities. So we've got the spell casting system, the sorcery there. It has a mana points. Nothing tremendously unusual about the system. You spend your points either first order, second order, or third order. And you can add trappings to deduct points. So usually a spell of the first order costs 5 points. But if you have mystic gestures, you can deduct a point. So you only spend 4 points. If you're reading out of a book, you could maybe deduct 2 points. If you have a material component, maybe deduct 3 points. If you take some extra time, like 5 minutes to cast it, you could deduct another point. There's a whole list of ways you can cheapen spells. But the first order, you have to spend at least 1 mana. So it starts at 5. If you can add 4 trappings to it, you only spend 1 point. And there's the same guidelines. Second order, I believe they usually cost 10, and you can cheapen it to 5. And the third order, they usually cost like 50, and you can cheapen it to like 25, I think. They're really expensive to use. You have to add a lot of trappings. Actually, I might have exaggerated. I don't think it's 50 points, but it might be 15 points. Regardless, the book will tell you this, the things that I can't remember. So a mana system, an easy framework to cast spells. That same framework goes into the magic items. Alchemy. So there are devices of the first, second, and third order, and they'll cost time, materials, and components similarly to casting a spell. But the way you go about it tactically, obviously, is very different. The artificer or the alchemist has to prep all this stuff well in advance, but he can keep using it over and over and over in that limited capacity. The sorcerer, he can't be disarmed of his gear, which is good. He has a lot of versatility, which is good, but he will run out of mana, especially if he starts using spells of the second order. You can probably only do one of those per adventure unless you have a lot of ranks in career magician or career sorcery. Now the third magic system is my favorite. That's theurgy, that's miracles, that's priests. And the way that works, it's very simple. It just makes you very lucky. You have the favor of the gods. You can confer this favor on others you can take it away and hex and curse them. So the way that works, if you have the favor of the gods, is instead of rolling 2 dice, you roll 3 dice and you take the highest 2. Or you can curse someone and they roll not 2, but 3 dice, but they keep the lowest 2. That's a curse. So the more ranks you have in priest, the more often you can bless and curse yourself or others. And you can also use these fortune or favor points to alter certain things, much like a fate point in Fate. Contrived coincidences, like, oh, what if my friend just happened to wander by to help me? Or, what if the bad guy just happened to be deathly afraid of cats and I happen to have my pet cat with me? It's up to the GM. But because it represents a favor of the gods, it's no longer a meta mechanic. It's an in-game form of magic, luck manipulation through the divinities in question. So that's why I really like it, because it doesn't involve metagaming, but it gives you this whole ability to have these contrived coincidences and to have this aura of mystery that people can still say, oh, that's not really magic, it's just good luck. Because that's exactly what the favor of the gods is. It's just really unbelievably crazy great luck. And I think that's pretty cool. It keeps it kind of low level at a certain point, because you can't really do anything you couldn't already have done, really. But you can do the best job that you possibly could have done, and circumstances can favor you as well. And they have this whole list. I think it's a smaller list in the core book, but there's an expansion called Heroes of Hellas, which is a Greco-Roman sword and sorcery game like Jason and the Argonauts, or like Hercules or Perseus, Clash of the Titans, which is of course Perseus, but Theseus and the Minotaur, any of that. Heroes of Hellas, that's your joint. It uses the Barbarians of Lemuria rule set. It has an expanded bestiary of Greco-Roman monsters. You can play as satyrs and minotaurs and centaurs. And it gives you an expanded list of ways to regain favor. Because favor does not regenerate on its own. You have to pray. You have to do good deeds. You have to make animal sacrifices. Whatever your god wants you to do to worship them, that's the only way to gain favor back. So with mana, with the wizards, you can keep casting, rest, cast again. With the priests, you can invoke these miracles, but then you have to pray or offer sacrifice or do good works in the eyes of your god before you can invoke further miracles. Maybe that makes it more usable than sorcery, or maybe less usable than sorcery, depending on the character, the circumstance, and his gods. So those are all the things I love about Barbarians of Lemuria. The favor of the gods mechanic, which is a way to bring in narrative mechanics that's not metagaming, because it's not the storyteller, it's the god of the setting. He's still in the setting. You don't have to break your immersion to invoke this. You have the 3 levels of sorcery and alchemy, which gives you 3 kinds of magic overall. So I love that. The versatility, the adaptability, the fact that anything you can think of, it's easy for you to stat because it gives you a framework rather than a list of spells. And of course that career system, which lets you bring in your character's backstory directly, quickly, and easily, and you can build those characters. On top of that, you have the regular rules light framework. 4 skills, 4 attributes, very simple combat system. I highly recommend Barbarians of Lemuria. There's really no downside, in my opinion, on the game. It's so simple, it's so light. It is a game that I would really call elegant. A lot of games claim to be, but Barbarians is elegant. The Elegant Barbarian. So that's my review. Very positive review. I give it an A rating, perhaps an A plus rating. Like I said, it's one of my favorites. Strongly recommend you check it out. Leave your comments about Barbarians of Lemuria in the comments section. Do you think it's trash? Do you agree with me that it's great? Is there something that I missed? It's not a big book, so I don't think I missed anything. But maybe I did. And until I see you again, good day and good gaming.